manages power generation from our customers, from our generators, right down to our customers. And this will show you the many opportunities that we have here, right in your own backyard in Jamaica, and opportunities in electrical engineering to show you the different sources of technology, the top of the line technology that we have here at JPS. So don't just feel it's a matter of sports and music that Jamaica actually has the lead in, right? But we are also one of the leading countries in terms of the type of technologies that we use to generate our power. And I won't be doing that today. My name is Lincoln Small, and I'm the Director of System Operations. And I will start you off first on a journey as to explain how does power get from our power plants right down to you, our customers. But then we'll be transitioning to quickly, and I'll be sharing my screen so everyone now can see what's happening here. So we'll be, so from after my presentation, then we'll be going on to building out a smart grid network. And in this smart grid network, you'll be hearing from a smart guy in a JPS staff, who is called Damon Brackett, who is our project engineer. He'll be explaining to you how some of the new interesting things that we're doing here at JPS. And then from there, we'll be moving on to the ultimate source of coral power in Miss Dion Nugent, who is our Director of Business Development, who will be telling you how we'll be driving into the future with electric mobility. I want to thank the members who have invited us to the bootcamp. It is our honor and our privilege to be here. And we find it very important to share this kind of knowledge with the future of Jamaica's professional electrical engineering field. So whether or not you have already started your courses to become an electrical engineer, whether you're still in high school, whether you're at home thinking about it, or you're in university, today now we will ensure that you see the pathway of how you can transition into becoming an electrical engineer. So we want to thank the members of the bootcamp for inviting us to be a part of this wonderful journey. So let's jump right into it. And I'll be dealing with, as I said, managing the Jamaican grid. And even on the screen that you can see here on the right-hand side, no, that is not another country. That reflects what happens in our control room that we use to manage the grid here. So these are some of the top of the line things that some of you electronic and IT brainiacs and engineers can get involved in. So let's talk a little bit about what is this business of power system and grid management. Who are all the players? Who are all the partners that are involved? So first of all, let's get one thing clear. So we have what you call our renewable technologies, and we have also our thermal technologies. And for the thermal technologies, what is required to generate electricity is that we need some source of fuel that would generate some source of heat. So Jamaica, unfortunately, we don't have any oil plants here. So ships carrying crude oil, right, or they carrying liquefied natural gas into our country via different arrangements, either by the government of Jamaica or from private entities. They supply us with the much needed fuel that we need to run some of these power plants. So money is exchanged to pay for fuel, and then the fuel comes over into our plants. And in the power plants, all these power plants are not just owned by JPS, but they are owned by what we call, some of them are owned by independent power producers, or IPPs. So JPS is not the only company that generates power on the grid. There's both JPS plants and a mixture of independent power producers, or we're going to call it IPP for now. So these plants take this fuel, and then they take that fuel and they turn it into electricity. For some plants, like the renewable plants, they don't need this source of fuel, right? So they have their own wind or a solar power source, and we get that electricity, and that electricity goes onto the wires, or what we call our transmission and distribution network. And then it goes on this bulk system, and it comes down to some substations, and eventually they get into your home, where in a sense, in any business, you basically help to pay for some of the overhead, which is the fuel, which we don't import here, we don't own here at JPS. which sometimes make about 60% of our energy costs, and then some other payments for these things that we put in the ground. And if you're looking quickly here at the slide, it shows you just the mixture of power generation that we have in the JPS system. So now these power plants, they come onto our grid, right? How do we manage the power that comes onto our grid and to ensure that you, the customer, gets it when you need it? So in Jamaica, we have different sources of technologies that generate power. We have your renewables, which are hydro plants, which turn water into electricity, solar plants, which convert your sun into electricity, and your wind turbines. So you can see that we're right up there with everybody else. We are trying as much as a country to use all the most indigenous sources available to us to generate electricity. And on top of that, now we use traditional, what you call gas turbines, which take the fuel and they burn the fuel, and that fuel gives us heat, and that heat turns a big turbine or a fan, and that fan turns a generator, which gives us electricity. And then we have some engines. These are not engines in your cars, but these are similar to car engines, but the size of almost a house or a two-story apartment. And then to get a little bit more efficient, one of the technologies that we have been moving into as a country is what we call combined cycle plants, where typical power plants will burn that fuel, release that heat, get that energy. We take some of that heat from these plants and reuse it, right, in order to get energy. And all of that comes to my grid operations center. And then in our grid operations center, we say, okay, what is it that our customers need at any given point in time? So if you look at the top section of our screen here, what is shown is how you, our customers, demand electricity on a 24-hour basis, which is represented by this red line shown here. So this red line shows you that at least between in the early morning hours from 12 to 6, 7 o'clock, that's the least amount of power that the customers want for us. Then we get up into the time of day where you pick up, everybody goes to work. And while at work, the electricity demand goes up. And we use these generators now, which are these blue bars here, total generation, to supply this amount of power, just as when you, the customers need it. Then after that, we go up into the peak. Now, funny, this peak now coincides with just after sunset when the street lights come on and some of us are at home watching either TVJ or CVM news. So our peak demand is primarily, it coincides with residential use of power. Something now that we are trying to change that profile as a country, because we can't just be using all of that power to watch TV and for recreation. We need to use some of that in the work environment. And then you slowly start to go to sleep and that cycle starts all over again. So my responsibility here is to ensure that we have enough generation to match with the demand when you need it. And that delicate balance of supply and demand will ensure that we have what is called a 50 hertz frequency. And that now goes onto our transmission network and it supplies our different customers, whether you're residential, commercial, or industrial. And just for you guys to know, the peak demand or the maximum demand for power in Jamaica was 666.7. And I know some of you religious persons are some persons who are basically who are skeptical of numbers. Yes, that was our peak demand for electricity in 2017, September, one of the hot years here in Jamaica. And we're probably en route for that now as we see that outside is hot. And we have about 1,000 megawatts of these power generators, 1,040 to supply you with electricity. So we have more than you need to ensure that we can maintain these machines as possible. So now, how does the power get to you, or how does it get to the customers? So all of you live in one of these dots or small pockets of areas. So let's test you geographical grids here to see those who know where they live, right, and who know what this map represents and which parishes these actually represent, right? So I anticipate that you took your geography classes very seriously. So this is where all of you live. And for some of you, you'll know that this section here is Blue Mountain, this section is the Coptic country. So no, it's not a matter that JPS don't care about people that live in the mountains or in the country. These are just areas of low concentration of power demand, similar for St. Thomas and the parish of Hanover. So you live here, But our power plants are located in these big red dots. There's not a lot of power plants that are located close to this demand. So that's where the transmission system comes in. And first, we step up the power from these power plants at probably at 138,000 volts, or what you call your high tension wires. And sometimes we go down to 69,000 volts. So we transmit at 69,000 or 138,000 volts. This is more than 100,000 times the voltage that comes into your house. So if you were to plug into any one of these, you'll be vaporized inside. So guys, let's try not to interrupt on the JPS network. So we can't use voltages at this high level. So then we have what is called our distribution system. The distribution system represented by these squiggly lines, these yellow and the green and the blue lines, right? These are voltages that are lower level at 24,000 down to 12,000 volts. And these wires now run on your streets. The little things that you call pans, or we call them transformers, will step these voltages down from 24,000 down to about 110, 220 volts, which is reasonable to use in your homes. So this is how now we move the power from the power plants right down to you, our customers. So everything here is supply and demand. But there is a situation that we had in about 2015, 2016, where in order to try and minimize electricity prices, what we did is that the country started a certain amount of renewables to get to. Renewables that you're talking about, sun and wind. But most of us know, like yesterday, the sun doesn't shine every time and the wind doesn't blow every day. But you, our customers, want electricity 24 hours a day. So what do we do when the sun decides to stop shining or the breeze stops blowing? If you're not able to supply electricity as it is needed, then you unfortunately have to do this thing that none of us like, called load shedding. And I'm going to lock my desk for that because load shedding is unacceptable. So what JPS did in 2019 is that we built and put into service the largest hybrid energy storage system in the world at that time. So we're not just breaking world records. We're not just sweeping out records in world championship and coming 1, 2, 3. In 2019, JPS had the largest hybrid energy storage system in the entire earth, right? In the solar system. That's a big deal for us as Jamaicans. And it's an opportunity to you or smart brainiacs for something now that you can start to pioneer into. Why did we need an energy storage system? So what would happen if there are times in which basically there's too much wind, too much solar, we'll save up some of that power. And in times when there's not a lot of sun and wind, then that battery system or the hybrid system in this case will release power back to us to increase the supply, hence there's no load shedding. Why a hybrid system? What does hybrid mean? So a lot of us know about batteries. But our hybrid system consists of two technologies, a battery and a flywheel. So what you're seeing here on the left-hand side of the screen is just the pros and cons of both. And what JPS decided to do is that we wanted the best of both worlds. Batteries are some things that once you start to have them up and down a little bit, they will wear down very quickly over time. But the flywheels, which just picture some big wheels or big magnets that are turning, where all that happens when we want to store the power now is transferred to that wheel spins faster and stores up all of that energy. And when you need that power to go back to that the grid, then some of that speed is removed from that big wheel and it goes back to the grid as power. And the flywheel can do that as many times as possible. The battery, if the battery does that too often, it will degrade very quickly. So what we did is that, okay, we use the flywheel to cover for those times. And then now we use the battery to offset when the flywheel doesn't have all that energy to give. And this project was a huge success because we actually reduced, right, the amount of power outages that we had by almost 95%, almost to 100% by using energy storage. So this project was a success and it will also help us to reduce the cost of electricity. Then now another thing, and my colleague Damian will explain this a little bit, Something that we have done now is to try and help predict outages or understand when the customers have outages. So we did a project last year called outage management system. What does this do? So in the past, you would have gone to school at about 7 o'clock, and then let us say that the power went out at your house at about 10. You're not going to know that the power is out until you get back home, because unfortunately, most grids do not monitor right down to your household level. Somebody has to call us. We need to know. So what we decided to do then is to say that, okay, we install some smart devices, and Damon will talk about that. One of them is called a smart meter. That's why we have to change those meters out. And this meter now will detect when there's no power at your house. It will talk to the system and say, okay, power went out at 10 o'clock. So to ensure that you have power for when you get home from work, it will talk to our crews and our control centers, and it will tell our crews, okay, go to this area and rectify this power problem and ensure that the person has power for when they get home. And then what you will see, for those of you who have the JPS My Mobile app, it will be talking to you to tell you that, okay, you don't know this, but I know that you never had power at 10 o'clock. We sent the crews out, and this is what the crews found, and this is how they reported back to us as to when your power was restored. So right there in the palm of your hands, on your mobile, your iPhone, your Samsung, or whatever you have, your bangers, right? It will basically tell you that, all right, power has been restored, and it keeps you up to date in real time. That's where we intend to get as a country. So just to close out all of this, what are we talking about here? The grid that we discussed today does show power moving in one direction. Power plants down to a transmission system and through the transformers, come on your road and come into the little pan thing is, are the transformers on your street and the pole, and come into your house. One direction of flow, source of power. And we still need and use persons and engineers to ensure that we maintain and keep this system running. This is a traditional grid. JPS and Jamaicans deal nothing with traditional. We're moving into a new era, and we're going to stay right up there with the rest of the world and create opportunities for your students to see a whole new world now, where their source of power not only coming from the power plants as shown here on the grid, but we can take power from those solar panels on your home. So you can generate electricity for yourself right here at your home. And then if you want to sell back some to the grid, then you can move back power in this direction as what is shown here. Also, what my friend Dion will go into is to show you the power of we're driving into this future with. You know about electric vehicles, and we know that, okay, electric vehicles, we're going to plug them into your home and we'll charge them up. But one of the things that we're looking also with electric vehicles is that if the grid sometimes need power, the electric vehicles, if they have too much battery, the customers might be in a position to sell back power to the grid to create another source. So if there should be a break here in the system and the traditional grid cannot get power to you, no worries. Either your electric cars or your solar panels or your wind turbine will be able to pump back power into the system. But guys, why am I hogging the mic here? Let's hear what Damien has to say to tell you about these smart technologies, because he's the one who's going to tie all of this together. Damien, over to you.
Thank you very much, Lincoln. Good morning, everyone. All right. So JPS has been on a journey, a very technologically driven journey towards creating a smart grid. And this morning, I'm going to show you some of the ways in which we have gone about creating that smart grid. My name is Damon Brackett, and I'm the project manager for the Smart Streetlight project. It's one of the projects that I currently do. And I look forward to guiding you through, some of the interesting things that we are doing here at JPS as it relates to technology and building a smart grid. Communication is the key to smartness. And communication is what allows us to be able to provide smart devices. So what makes a device smart? The ability to communicate with it, right? So here at JPS, we have built out a massive communication infrastructure to support all of our smart devices and all the technology that we have created. right? From or apps right through to all the devices. The picture here is showing one of our communication towers, of which we have a number of them across the island. This one at Washington Boulevard provides communication wirelessly to other sites across the island and provides information back to the control system center that Lincoln was just talking about. Let's move to the next slide, please. Smart meters. So smart meters are one of the devices that most people would be very familiar with, because by now most persons would probably have a smart meter at home, right? The mobile app is driven by the capabilities of the smart meter. So using the mobile app, you are able to, right at your fingertips, get information on your consumption, do your budgeting, determine how much energy you want to utilize, track and maintain and manage this, switch between postpaid and prepaid services. So all of the power that exists in the app is enabled through the smart meters. And we continue to build out the smart meter network to ensure that eventually everybody will have a smart meter and everybody will have the same power through the application to manage their energy, right? Keep track of it and control it. Smart street lighting. Now, this is my baby. We have so far converted over 105,000 lights across the island, right? This has been a major undertaking. And what it has done is really completely revolutionize for us street lighting and how we view street lighting. So not just the fact that we have these new LED lights, which give us nice, clean white light, but behind that now, we have the smart capabilities which allow us to get real-time information from the lights and allow us to issue commands, turn on, turn off the lights and provide control. I'm going to give you a little demonstration here. So I'm going to share with you the application that we utilize. Let me know when you're seeing this. So this application enables us. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, David, I'm seeing your screen. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, so this application allows us to switch on and switch off the lights, right? And I'm going to show you a demonstration that we have set up here in the office. I'm able to, from the desktop, issue a switch on command to the light, and it should be coming on any second now. Generally speaking, the speed of communication, while we might want it to be an instantaneous, like the switch of your light switch at home, unfortunately, in the real world, communication doesn't happen at that speed, right? Here we go. So it has to go through all the firewalls and all of the protective systems. Information has to travel to the World Wide Web and back. So, understood, but near real time. So this is the level of capability that we have. Our field crews now are able to utilize the technology to make maintenance more efficient. We're able to manage the program of keeping the lights on in a much more effective way, because we have all the information right here at our fingertips for us to action, right? Yes. All right. So we can move back to. All right. Can we move back to the presentation, please? Right. So another set of devices. So Lincoln earlier referred to outages, right? And ensuring that you're always supplied with power. One of the ways that we're able to do this is through some of these smart devices, grid modernization devices that we have installed across our network. In the pictured here, I have 3 of the main devices that we use. And I actually have here the fault circuit indicator, which enables us to be able to determine where faults occur on the line. One of the cool things about this device is that its installation is very simple and easy. It just clips onto the line, and once you have a fault going, then it is going to just simply start flashing. The field crews driving around will be able to see the light, right? But also, when it's communication enabled, this will actually send a signal back to the system control to say, hey, there's a fault here. So a lot of these devices now enable us to improve our reliability. So gone are the days when you have outages that last for a very long time, and we have to sit down and wait for customers to determine or give us feedback. We're able to know what is happening on the grid and be able to respond in a more efficient and effective manner, right? The picture that I have shown here is showing on the pole one of our reclosers and with communication enabled. So there's a small satellite antenna there that provides wireless communication back to the system control so that they are able to also manually or rather remotely monitor and control switching of lines in their bid to ensure that your experience in terms of outages is maintained at a high level. Lastly, we're taking our smart systems to the next level. And we are now doing demos, right? And doing research into smart city applications. Smart city applications, meaning devices that collect information generally, right? Utilizing the systems that we have, the communication background that we have, all of those poles that we have with lights on them. Pictured here, we have a sensor that we recently started to test. This is an air quality sensor. And this sensor is measuring the concentration of particulate matter at the level of 2.5 microns and 10 microns, right? And I'm going to show you as well what the information that we're getting from this system looks like. Let's share my screen here again. All right. Let me know if you're seeing it.
Not yet. Yep.
All right, cool. So we have actually installed 5 of these devices already across the corporate area: Constant Spring Road, Riverton City, Cooper's Hill, in Crossroads, and Halfway Tree, close to the transport center. You can see, and this is something that we expect, that the higher the peaks on these curves is the worse the quality of the air is. It means that the higher the concentration of these very small particles is, right? And the thing about air quality and why it's so important is that these small particles have the ability to get into your bloodstream. So you will hear NEPA talking about, air quality in Jamaica. We're now able with these devices to get it down to a community level, down to a street level, so that we have a lot more information so persons can be more aware of what is happening on a daily basis. As it is now, we're really investigating this. So the future of this really belongs to you guys. Now, studying computer science and data science, networking, and all of these. This is your future, right? You're the ones who are going to now be able to roll these devices out in a massive way, collect data from them in a massive way, do tons of research, etc. We're really early adopters now, and these technologies are really new. So we look forward to the day when, this can now become common technology, like your phone, like things that everybody uses every day, and that this sort of data is now being supplied to applications that probably you will design, probably you will write the code for them, right? But this is what we are doing now in terms of embracing the technology and moving towards a smarter grid. Thank you very much, and I'll hand over to Dion.
Thank Thank you, Damian. So we have looked at the grid and we have looked at the smart city. So we are now driving into the future with our new type of vehicles, and we're talking electric vehicles, and we're in the zone of electric mobility. So I am Dion Nugent. I am director with responsibility for business development. I'm also a trained electrical engineer, and I've been in this JPS journey, and it's been tremendously exciting. Just touching all the technologies that you have heard about before. And I am here to tell you a little bit about what's happening on the electric vehicle side, because as Damian said, we are looking ahead. We're looking to see how do we set a foundation for your generation to build on and make it bigger and better. So as we look ahead, next slide. I want to let you know that electric vehicles are here. You know, a lot of people think it's somewhere out there, but I want you to take a look sometimes on the roads. There are quite a few battery electric vehicles. And what am I talking about? Our traditional vehicle is an internal combustion engine vehicle, you know, with the pistons and the turning engines. We're talking about vehicles that are operating solely and purely on batteries, and they are here. And I want to tell you that I have driven one. That's the one we have here, one of the several we have here in JPS, because we want to demonstrate that electric vehicles are a very, very good option. And we know that, you know, in the middle between a traditional internal combustion engine and a traditional and the battery electric vehicle, you have various types, hybrid, the hybrid battery, you have the plug-ins, but we are at full battery, and we're looking ahead in this realm because we want to have a more sustainable future. We're looking at transportation that certainly makes a positive impact on our future as it relates to climate change. We believe we need to be encouraging and fostering a more sustainable tomorrow. So what is our look ahead with respect to electric vehicles on the island? So from our forecast, we are seeing that we're going to be looking at maybe 20 to 30 to 50,000 electric vehicles on our roads in Jamaica. We don't have many today, but I'm telling you, I've been on the streets of Kingston and I've begun to see them. And I know that they're in other areas of the island. The persons are calling us and having the conversation. So we do have you know, a forecast that says we are going to be taking off to see more electric vehicles on the island. And in fact, the government has said that they are going for a very, very aggressive target. They're saying they want to do 12% of their private fleet by 2030, 16% by of their public fleet, including buses, by 2030. They want to see Jamaica go electric. And as the Jamaica Public Service Company, we have totally logged on to that, and we have been aggressively supporting that. And the government has taken the steps where they have actually lowered the tariff on the vehicles, right, for electric vehicles under 3 years old. And what we are now seeing is persons starting to take up that option here in Jamaica. And as JPS, we are supporting Jamaica's readiness to increase those EVs on the island. And so we look ahead in terms of how do we position ourselves. And we see ourselves as a leader in the space. And, you know, those of us in the technology areas, you know, sometimes we're not always seen, but we are definitely making great impacts in the space because technology is what is driving our tomorrow. So as JPS and our team members and my colleagues, we see it as important to accelerate this sector in Jamaica. And what have we been taking leadership positions on? We have seen it's very important. You are in technology, you know, but you are influencing policy. You are telling people, okay, based on the specifications, based on the safety standards, this possibly is exactly how you should frame your policy going forward. And so what we are doing here in JPS is as we get deeper into the technology, we are participating in those conversations to influence the framework around Safety, you want to make sure when mommy and the two babies are in the back of the car that they're totally safe in an electric vehicle. We want to influence those standards. We want to influence the standards for buildings, because we want to know when you get your new house that you have EV infrastructure in there. We want to be able to ensure that in that space, we are having the conversations and we're influencing the standards. But we're not just talking here, we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. We as JPS, and some of you might have seen it, we have started to put our charging infrastructure, electric vehicle charging infrastructure around the island, because we say that yes, despite most of the times persons who have an electric vehicle, they'll be charging at home. Most of the time you come home, you'll just plug in and charge, but you're going to be driving around the island. You're going to be going to maybe, Port Antonio, Negril, wherever your leisure travel may take you. And we want to make sure you feel totally comfortable to be able to drive those vehicles. And so we are deploying infrastructure and taking a lead role in that. And thirdly, as a business, as a company, as technical team members, we realize that we need to also be playing in the space to educate persons, because not everybody understands the technology, how it works, how this thing go, what are the technical matters, supposed breakdown, all of that. We want to be able to ensure that we are also in the space and we are participating in that public awareness and development of the sector, because we want to make sure that you're not only understanding it, but maybe you may even have a business in this new sector that is going on. So we are technical, we are technologists, but we're leading a transition to a more sustainable transportation system type in Jamaica, and we are the electric utility, and we are playing our part with all the other stakeholders to make sure that we have this more sustainable future prepared for our next generation. So for JPS, what we have done in terms of our charging network, our strategy has been that most vehicles, the older EVs like the Nissan Leaf, they were like about 130 plus or minus kilometers range. And just to give those who don't really have a sense, between Kingston and Montego Bay, you're probably working about 170, between 170, 180 kilometers, right? In terms of distance. The average older type EV, the range wasn't so long, but today the vehicles are coming in your over 200, over 300, up to 400 kilometers that you can go. You probably can't circle the island. But nonetheless, what we are saying is that if you're on the road, we want to make sure that you have a convenient location to stop. And what you are seeing there is our initial thoughts. You had to think out the strategy. None was there. We had to think it out. What would make sense for this new sector? And we said, we'd want to make sure at least every 30 kilometers across the island. I know your vehicle can go way beyond 30, but we want to make sure you have a sense of comfort, preventing what they call range anxiety. When you're going driving your electric vehicle, you're like, oh my God, where's the next charging station? We don't want you to have that sort of experience. So to mitigate range anxiety, we said every 30 kilometers across the island, we want to site a charging station, and we want to make sure it's accessible, that you can move in, move out, feel comfortable to use it. As you know, charging takes a little bit more time than if you're filling up your tank, but nonetheless, where you site it, you feel comfortable, you can be eating, you can be shopping, you can be, doing various things. So you have a location where charging can be a comfortable and great experience. So what have we done? We launched our first public charging station last year, and that's right in the middle of the island. So it's at Boots gas station in Draxall. And if you went across from the north-south highway and you're about that major gas station near the Scotches around there, that big gas station, that's where our first level 3 rapid charging EV charging station is located. I want you to take a look out for it around there. And what this represents is the first rapid chargers. So you have different types of chargers. I won't go into it here, but The level 3 is the fastest charge. You can actually go from 0 to full charge on your battery within 30 to 40 minutes, depending on the type of your vehicle and what it says. You can have a very quick experience. But remember, maybe you just want to top up. So this is an even faster top up. You don't always fill up your gas tank when you're at 0, right? You may want a top up. So this can give you a rapid top up. And this was really a proud moment for us and all the technical team members that had to think through the technology, think about the siting, think about how you connect it, how this piece of equipment becomes operationalized. It was an exciting moment for us to have there. So as we started to expand, and we are about to share with you where else we have been.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
We are important. Go ahead.
The commissioning of the Port Antonio Total JPS Charge and Go.
Total is investing to move from a hydrocarbon company to an energy company, and most especially to sustainable energies.
The Jamaica Public Service Company is at the forefront of a national movement to revolutionize transportation in Jamaica.
There is no better place than Portland to illustrate that wonderful blend of tradition and renewal.
Let us in Jamaica be an integral part of creating a healthier and better planet Earth for our children and future generations. Let us be on the right side of history here in Jamaica.
I'm delighted to be here this afternoon as the Jamaica Public Service commissions another electric vehicle charging station in Bryant's Bay, Portland. I was at the first commissioning in St. Anne a few months ago, and since then, we have seen the EV wave steadily moving across Jamaica. As far as the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology is concerned, we are pushing for a significant reduction in the duties on electric vehicles.
Great stuff. And where are we today? So we had identified 10 locations in the first phase because we believe the infrastructure question is very important to have an answer. And we are one of several players in the market. So we have 10 sites, 8 of them are operational. 10 of the chargers are physically underground, but not quite in service as yet. So, just to give you the rapid chargers, we are in Montego Bay, in Iron Shore, in St. James, as we mentioned before, Draxhall, and we do have our latest commissioned unit in Kingston, across from the Spanish Port and the JPS head office, that gas station, Texaco gas station. So that's one of our highlights, quite a lot of activity there. And we are in Negril, in Sav, Discovery Bay, Port Antonio, as you saw, Manor Park, just to give you an idea that we're really trying to touch base, and we're working on the South Coast now for Mineral Heights to be that critical stop along the route. So, as a country, we are really looking ahead to see how we can ensure that we continue to be the lead, not only in Jamaica, but in the region. So our next slide shows us that we were in 2021, a little bit farther behind in terms of charging stations, but the momentum has picked up. And in 2022, we're beginning to really contend very strongly in terms of the charging infrastructure, which is a strong signal out there that a world of electric mobility and electric charging is actually well positioned to move in Jamaica in a very rapid way. So we are saying to you that for those who are really looking ahead in the technology space, electrical, technologists, we are preparing that foundation for you to build on going forward. And we're also very involved in other collaborations. And we want to just share with you our feature project between JPS Foundation and the IDB Lab, which has really been very exciting, which is in this project, which we have branded Project eDrive. We are talking about the development of a sustainable e-mobility ecosystem for inclusion and access. That's the long name version, but what it simply means is this. Anyone who owns an electric vehicle must have all of the supporting systems in place. You want to make sure you have a mechanic. You want to make sure if you're on the road, on the road, that you have a first responder. You want to make sure that you are able to buy a part. So, you want to make sure that you have persons around who can support in the finance sector, where if you want to get a loan, your insurance is okay. We want to make sure all those elements that make it normal and routine for you to own a vehicle, an electric vehicle, is in place for you. And remember, we are technical people operating in such a cross-functional dimension. So it's no longer very narrow. We are talking right across the board. We are really operating as technical operatives in a wide matrix of stakeholders. And Project eDrive, we are focused, as I mentioned before, on market sensitization and public awareness. We want to bring our Jamaican people, our young people, our older people, everybody on board with us to understand the technology and how we are going forward. We want to promote innovation and entrepreneurship and ensure that persons are operating in the space in a way. Tell me if you're still hearing me.
Yes, Miss, we are.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And we want to make sure that we're doing, we're building the technical capacity, because we think that this is important. If you are going to be in the electric vehicle and operating this space, we want to make sure that we have the training, we have the support for you and your families to be able to access the information to participate in this space. So our next slide shows us, some of the things that we have done, and there are quite a lot of things that we have done under this Project eDrive. We're featuring on the left the fact that through the Heart Trust NSTA, that partnership, and Project eDrive is the JPS Foundation and the IDB Lab. We were working with Heart Trust NSTA to create a training program for mechanics to deal with electric vehicles. And we were able to successfully conclude the trainers program recently. So the picture is showing just one of those students. And we had a newspaper article about one of the women that were in the group, who has also been trained as a trainer. So we're not leaving out the ladies at all, the women in our team. And we have also conducted a boot camp for entrepreneurs, for persons who had those ideas, what kind of new ideas they have to start businesses in this new growing sector. And we worked with the Branson Center for a boot camp in that regard. And I tell you, in that space, I had young men, I had young women, I had older men, older women. It was really a rich environment of ideas. And we brought the persons into the space to hear what the ideas and how we can support developing the businesses, because we want Jamaica to grow not only in the charging, but also in the commercial side. And we believe that we need to promote and facilitate that sort of connection with our young people. And we have had a wonderful program bringing interns from the university, UE, UTEC, CMU, and they were able to partner with us and be in the space and learn around EV technology and actually have that hands-on experience. So we are now ensuring that all the ecosystem areas are in place to have a really sustainable, strong e-mobility sector in Jamaica. And that's us. And that is the baton we are about to hand over to you. So as we look ahead, we see a bright future. Remember, we're just laying a foundation here now, trying and ensuring that the foundation is strong. We're saying that, persons coming to Jamaica, they should be able to find EV charging infrastructure right across the island. Our brand is a Charge and Go brand. You have other brands, but we are Charge and Go, and we want you to be able to find that easy and accessible. So we answer the question. If you're on the road, you don't have a problem. We're working on that sensitization, that public sensitization campaign, because we want our young people, you know, if you have interest in the area, that you have clarity around the technology and what does it mean. We're also looking at solutions for homes, you know, and commercial and bus fleets, because we're really looking, you know, taxis. We want to have taxis being a taxi EV fleet. We want to have, you know, our manufacturer delivery trucks to be EVs, where the function matches the EV performance. And so that is one of the areas now that we're spending some time to look at. We're supporting the government and their national mandate. And as Lincoln started out talking about the grid, we go back to the grid. We have to make sure that the grid is also ready. And why is that important? Because when you live on, you know, in your new area with 20 electric vehicles in that neighborhood, and you are plugged in at nights, we want to make sure that that grid is ready to charge and give you support for the charging of your vehicles. So it's a tomorrow that we believe is very bright, and we stepped out into a new space for Jamaica, and that is what we do. We look at the technology, how can we bring this to life in our space? And it means that you have to step out as a leader. And for me, my journey has always been an exciting one. Been in the grid, been in the solar, now in electric vehicles. And I'm telling you, there are so many other new areas to come. We just need to step out. And so we are here to support you and to help your future to be an even brighter one. So I am going to open the floor now for any questions. There is Lincoln, there is Damian, there's myself. So let's talk. All right. I see that hand. So we'll continue to moderate.
So there are a few questions in the chat. I think we can start with those. What about dishonesty? Are there cameras or the system is set to not work unless payment is made? This is specific to the charging infrastructure. So that one's for you, Dion.
Okay, so our facility is a cashless facility. So you don't have to worry. What happens with our solution, and typically with a lot of other solutions around the world, is that you actually have an app that controls and manages that whole charging process. So you download, in our case, the Charge Lab app. And from the Charge Lab app, you can register your credit card. So it's currently, it's a credit card requirement to be able to use it. And when you charge, or you can use that app to initiate the charge. So you go to the charger, you plug in, you initiate the charge from the app, and then it starts to charge. You don't exchange any cash there. And when you're finished, you stop it from charging and you plug it out and you're on your merry way. And on a monthly basis, you'll get those charges on your credit card. We do have the other option with, if you don't have your phone with the app on it, you get a little card, RFID card, that you can do the same thing right locally at the charger. But currently it's all cashless. You just need to download the app and follow the steps that are provided there. No cameras needed, no smart city cameras as yet to facilitate charging.
So compared to gas cars, what's more affordable in terms of car payments and sustainability? And while you answer that, you can also speak to the benefits of electric mobility for the environment.
Good. So let me start out with the environment. So we believe that as a nation, you know, the impacts of climate change are very important to us, and battery electric vehicles at a national level have been identified as a huge opportunity for Jamaica to impact our emissions, our level of emissions on the island, And in fact, we have participated in the international protocols to reduce emissions, and transportation is one of the opportunities that we are moving ahead with. Those targets have been set by the government, and we're working with the various government ministries to support that. And what it says is that with a battery electric vehicle, certainly you don't have any tailpipe emissions. You know, all your internal combustion engine vehicles, you see the trucks, you see the cars, there are emissions coming out of that tailpipe. You do not have that with a battery electric vehicle. So it's a low hanging fruit opportunity to the extent that we can make that transition. A gas versus battery electric vehicle, it's one where on a fuel basis, let me start there. Electricity is a cheaper fuel than the normal liquid fuels that you go up to the pump and buy. That's a matter of just doing the calculation. So the cost per kilometer using electricity, even though, you know, some persons may not be sure, but we have calculated, others have calculated, it's cheaper. It could be up to 40 to 50% cheaper fuel for fuel. So operating an electric vehicle versus a gas vehicle is cheaper, and it's also advantageous on the electric vehicle side because you have a lower operating cost on maintenance because you have less parts. The disadvantage right now, and I don't want to say it's a true disadvantage, is that the cost of like electric vehicles, so vehicle for vehicle, same size, same type, the electric vehicles are still a little bit higher, but the market is really moving very fast. Remember when batteries used to be like that, very expensive, but prices are going down. So we're expecting that we should have parity very soon. So overall, over the life of the vehicles, certainly we see a greater benefit with the electric vehicle versus the internal combustion engine vehicles. Now, I always advise you need to go and do your calculations, do your reviews, look at it for yourself. This is not just taking our word for it, but making sure that it actually works out when you put the numbers down. And I can tell you it does.
I think we can take the question. Aliyah has her hand raised. I think it's her. We should be able to take her question now.
Okay, Miss, thanks for that. What I was asking is about, suppose Jamaica is supposed to have a blackout where there's no electricity, right? How would the cars that needs the electricity be recharged so that transportation can take place?
So I'll jump right into that one. So I have been answering some of the questions in the chat in the group, and that question was one that I just completed the answer. So blackouts are an unfortunate situation. We have been putting a lot of systems and mechanisms in place to prevent those. In fact, we have not had one in over 6 years, and hopefully it maintains that, stays that way. But one of the options that you have for charging cars as well is not only charging them from the grid. Some homeowners who might have their own solar source or their own batteries, if the grid is not there for power, similar to one of the slides that I showed, then you can use even your local battery storage at your house to charge up the cars. So therefore, that is the kind of grid that we are moving into, where you will have redundancy. If the grid is not there, then a smaller grid will be set up in your local communities or even from your home to run those cars, to power those cars.
Okay, sir, thank you.
Keep going, guys. Fire the questions away. Michaela, I see your hands up.
Yes, so I have two main questions. So the first one, in your section of the presentation, right, you mentioned that there's excess demand for power in the late evenings when persons like get home from work, school, or wherever. And you mentioned that you would want persons to cut down on that demand in that late evening so it can be, you know, more evenly distributed to, you know, like in the midday when persons are at work. So how exactly were you guys planning to do that? Like, are there any ideas that you guys were thinking of to reduce this demand in the late evening, or have you implemented things already?
There are some things that have been implemented already, and one of them is called a time of use rate. So if for a large commercial or industrial customers, there is an incentive for persons to use power outside of these peak periods, because the rate of electricity, the prices there are much cheaper in those off-peak hours, as you call them. So that is an incentive for our customer to say that, okay, use most of your electricity during those times instead of using them in the peak. And hence this kind of effect will allow us to flatten the curve, as they call it.
Oh, okay, thank you. And my second question, so with the implementation of all these smart devices, the smart street lights, whatever, there will definitely be a drop in the labor force, right? Like as it relates to working, like for example, you have the smart meter. You don't have persons going out on the road anymore to read the meters and then come in and then report, because you can access it all from whatever device is there. So do you think there'll be a major drop in the labor force as it relates to this industry, or will you be creating new positions or something like that?
Look at the opportunity, right? So yes, something phases out another thing, but then no, you're going to create a demand for something new. So with smart technologies being implemented, they produce a lot of data that has to be analyzed and used to design other systems and to optimize other programs. So what will be required now is more analytics, as what you call it. So now you have all these tons of data that is coming in. Instead of probably having somebody out there that's reading meter, that same person who used to go out there and physically read the meter can now be at a meter management center that they get all the data and they can analyze to say that, okay, these persons use power in this kind of pattern. Therefore, let's basically present that kind of solution to them. That person uses power in that time of day, and they use more renewables more sun than they use wind. But therefore, let's do some planning studies to say how much time they will produce power from sun or wind. The point I'm trying to make is that once one thing is phased out doesn't mean elimination, but it's replaced. And when it's replaced, it creates the opportunity for us to do something else, which is part of what we presented here. So for persons to maintain these new smart meters, persons to analyze these new smart meters, persons know to install these new devices that we have out there, and other engineers know who will take this information and plan on it for the future. So what this says to you now is that we have been opening up the channels from traditional things that we used to do that probably, let us say, require 10 people. Now with the suite of applications that we're showing now, you might need 100 more people now to basically use this and to allow their creative energies to develop and to fix other things. So look at it more as an opportunity and not an elimination.
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Support of that, just to add to what Lincoln was saying, what really has happened over the past several years is that technology has caused jobs to change. So it's not that the need for a labor force is removed, is that the types of jobs change. So the types of jobs that existed 20 years ago have changed significantly. There are so many jobs that are very popular now that didn't exist 20, 25, 30 years ago, especially in the technology space, networking, cybersecurity, data analytics, all of these things. There is a great emphasis on them now. Before they didn't exist. And I'm sure as we go along, we'll be creating, as the technology changes, you're going to be creating new types of jobs that we currently even don't know about, but they will become existent in another 10 years. So the idea is really that you're always keeping abreast of the technology, always doing your research, and ensuring that you're aware of the changes and that you're staying abreast with the changes that are taking place.
Okay, thank you very much. And since I have you all here, I just have one more question. I know I said two, but I have one more. So I asked this in the comments as well, but I'll just say it here. I was asking, so the public relation, public opinion about JPS, right? It's not so good in the country of Jamaica, right? And in my opinion, it's mostly because I guess persons make assumptions about the company and there's no one there to correct them about it. So what is JPS going to do, or do they prioritize rectifying that relationship, fixing it so that the Jamaican public and JPS have a good relationship?
Thanks, Michaela. My name is Winsome Callum, and since I'm here, I think I should answer this question. I am the Director for Communications at JPS. I'm sure the others could help to answer. But we're very, very aware of the perception of JPS. And there's a lot that we have been doing to fix our relationship with our customers. Now, if you step back and ask yourself, why do people hate JPS? And our surveys have actually revealed that there are a couple of things why people think negatively of JPS. One is the cost of the service. They absolutely think that JPS is charging too much. And two, the actual experience that they have with the company on a day-to-day basis. So how are we addressing them? The cost of electricity is not something that JPS has total control over. As Lincoln pointed out, it's determined by the fuel cost and other costs external to the company. But we have been working a lot with media houses, community groups, and other key stakeholders to improve the communication at the local level and at the national level about the electricity bill, about the factors impacting electricity, and engaging persons a lot more than we were in the past. So right now we're using every single platform available. Face-to-face meetings, online meetings, we're all over our social media pages, constantly updating with information. Every week we're on at least 4 radio stations, we're on TV, and we're in the papers. So it's a work in progress, this education and enlightening people and addressing the issues. If you listen to the radio stations, you realize that it's almost impossible to keep up with every single caller who complains about JPS. So what we've done is to have dedicated spots in these radio stations, in these radio programs, where we actually proactively provide the information and also address the questions that come in. So this is actually an ongoing uphill journey, literally, because, you know, you may not even be aware that we have a very vibrant series on YouTube that's about energy, the different elements of what we do here. But you might be on radio, so we don't get everybody everywhere. But we'd love for you to continue to give us feedback in that space. The second thing that affects our customers' perception is their experience. When they have power outages, they don't know why and they get upset. It's interfering with their lives. They don't get Wi-Fi. So that experience, I don't think PR can fix that so much, except to have people understand why they have the outage and what we're doing to fix it. As you would have heard from Damian and Lincoln, there's a lot that we're doing to improve our responsiveness. The customer service, we're working hard to fix that also. We've introduced more technology so persons can get through faster using the mobile app. They can get through faster even when they call the customer care center. We're putting in new technology to make that experience better. In our last survey that we did, we checked in on a couple of things. One, are people feeling better about JPS? And we've seen some improvement. We've actually seen improvement where people feel better about the company than they did last year. Earlier this year, we did a communication survey, and one of the things that was asked is, do you feel more informed now than you did a year ago? And 51% of the persons who responded said yes, they felt that they were more knowledgeable about what JPS is doing, about JPS now in 2022 than they were in 2021. So yes, we continue to work at it. We don't have all the answers, but we recognize that it is a work in progress, and we really appreciate the feedback. Thank you.
And I can probably add something to that as
And
well. I can add something to that as well, Winsome. I would ask Michaela, today you are more wiser than you were 2-3 hours ago. Could it be that one of the things that you guys are so popular in your little circles of influence wherever you go, can you look at it to say that, all right, let us help out and start probably little clubs or your little WhatsApp groups, and let's call them, let's talk energy. I'm just brainstorming here. That with information like this that you receive, and we can probably even form a club after that, where information constantly goes out to these smaller pockets, right? Because kids say the darndest things. And in your small groups, you can now become ambassadors, right? Not just for JPS, but for Jamaica and its energy transition. And with us informing you and sharing information in these pockets, in these groups, then you can now take it and spread the word to inform and enlighten others who do not have that knowledge. Because even if you look at some of the questions here, you are genuinely asking them because you do not know. There are 3 million people in Jamaica. JPS has about 700,000 customers. So what we need is as many voices as we can to help to spread that word out. So probably, guys, what you can do now, we are officially branding you today as JPS ambassadors. And everything when you get to there now, you're going to spam like energy WhatsApp groups, and you're going to talk like experts like Damien, like Dion, and like this little brother here where I chat off him out so much, and spread the information out there so that people can be more aware. And then now we can combine our energies together, and you can come back to us now in the JPS Youth Club, JPS Electricity Youth Club, and spread the information about. Is that something that you guys would be interested in doing? I kind of throw that back out into the group.
Yes, sir.
All right. So
that was a very quick yes, Linkai.
Yeah, man, I like it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I mean, the future belongs to you guys, right? So my advice would be use your voice now. You get a platform to express yourself. Do that. Try thinking about the future that you want and ensure that whatever we are doing is preparing for the future that you want to see, right? So as Linkai said, form the groups, reach out. If you need to call JPS and ask for Miss Column and say, hey, I need to talk to you because we had the webinar and I'm following up, do that, do whatever you need to do to ensure that you are knowledgeable so that when you're talking to other persons, you are speaking from a point of knowledge and, seek the information. As I said, if you need to reach out to us, reach out to us. We're more than happy to share whatever we have information-wise with you guys. As you said, you alluded to the perception of JPS. Again, it's a perception. A lot of it is based on just lack of information. So key information.
So important, Damon. Winsome is one of the best persons around in corporate communication. And I know that the team is trying so hard to get information out. And probably Winsome is now going to hire you guys in a creative way to spread the word. Because I can tell you, I've gone to other utilities and Winsome is one of the best at what she does. Right? So we can join some, help Winsome and the team to promote our corporate communication messages. So Winsome, you have a new team, corporate communications team.
Thanks, Linkai. But what helps is the feedback, because we thrive on feedback. And sometimes we get really good feedback, and sometimes we get feedback that is not so good, but we don't dismiss it. We build on it. So make sure you link us on our social media pages, go to YouTube, check out our videos, give us feedback, tell us what we're doing well and what we're not doing so well. And you never know, you might actually be working with us down the road. I mean, that's what this is about, right? Careers in energy. There's so many options. Liana, go ahead, your hand is up.
Yes, Miss, I was wondering. I know that how JPS is a wind turbine sort of company, but let's say, for example, Jamaica became more what do you call it? The solar based. What would happen then? What would that mean for JPS? Would sales go down? What would happen then?
Linkai?
Well, no, sales would not go down. So as we transition through different electricity technologies, one of the things that as a country we need to look at, I know that the government is looking at it as well, is to introduce more renewables into the country, right? Not just by traditional thermal plants, but looking at more wind and solar. The only thing, the only exposure that we need to manage, as I said, is that not every day the wind blows or the sun shines. So when you have that variation of a cloudy day with a lot of rain and there's no sun and then there's no breeze, then we would have to incorporate other energy storage devices, as you heard me say. But the key thing that we're trying to manage and all that is that we need to do everything one step at a time, because we don't want to try and buy too many things, because buying too many things means you're going to also increase the cost of electricity. So in time, as prices for solar and wind goes down and prices for batteries come down, what you will tend to see now for energy security is that we will now become more independent and produce power from wind and solar and hydro and other renewable plants, and we'll be backing them up with batteries. But we want to ensure that when that happens, the price that we'll be paying for those things are not so expensive, because we do not want to increase your electricity rates. So that's a plan that the government of Jamaica, JPS, and all the other partners, because even if you saw my first slide, JPS, there's no monopoly anymore on electricity generation. In fact, almost 60% of the power that is coming on the grid is coming from what you call independent power producers. They are not JPS plants. So JPS doesn't own all the generators. So this is a partnership that we're all doing together, and everybody now is aligned to ensure that we get the rates down, we get the environment as clean and friendly as possible, and we've introduced renewables to guarantee our energy security so that we can be less dependent on imported foreign oil.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Let me join that conversation. Sorry, Damien. Let me jump in. I mean, I'm on the business development side, and the main point I want to make, Liana, is as a business, the world is changing, and JPS also has to respond to what's happening in our own markets. And energy is in a transformation process over the past few years. I was here when the first wind turbines came in, and there was a sense that we were supposed to be afraid of it, right? We stepped out and we embraced it, and we have actually seen the growth of renewables, including wind and solar. And there is potentially a world where you will have only solar. And it says, as a business, where will we sit? How will we position ourselves? How will we ensure that we can continue to be a sustainable energy enterprise in Jamaica? And so I want to communicate to everyone that in this world where a century ago, when I started looking at electric vehicles, they showed a picture of a world in New York where everybody was driving horse and buggy, like year one. And then year three, they took a same picture and the same shot, same angle, same crowded streets. And it was all first set of motor vehicles, motor cars. And the picture was telling us that things change and things change rapidly. And so as businesses, we have to be looking at how do we respond in the space, supporting the national agenda of energy security and sustainability. And I think that we have done pretty well so far in terms of going down that journey, and we're continuing to transform. And we need the talent, and we need the brains also to support us to ensure we get there in a way that causes the cost of electricity to go down. That's an important thing for us. We don't want the high prices. It has to make sense, not only for us, the utility, but it has to make sense for you. Damian?
There's a question here.
Someone asked a question. Right. I'll have to jump off shortly because I have another meeting. But someone asked a question earlier.
Again,
sorry.
None of my projects are really utilizing that right now.
Someone asked a question earlier about what if everybody went solar, right? And I think Lincoln could respond to it. But I want the point to be made, right, for everybody, that the cost of energy is basically designed in such a way that it's shared. All of us are sharing the cost, right? So if everybody were to go and do their own solar, then it means that you would only be limited to getting energy from that one source. As an organization, we are generating energy from wind, solar, hydro, your regular hydrocarbons, all of these together in a mix to ensure that energy is always available for everyone. If everyone were to go off and choose one specific way of getting their energy, then that would be a risk for everyone, right? And we all share. So essentially, it's a national mindset sort of a thing, to accept that it's better if we're all together in a shared environment and all looking out for each other, which is what happens now, when you have a mix of all of these different types of energy, to ensure that the energy security remains. You always have energy because you're generating from all of these different avenues. So when you don't have wind, then you'll have sun. When you don't have sun, you'll have water, but you'll always have energy.
Thank you, Damien. We are going to take a couple more questions, but we will be wrapping up in about 5 minutes. This question, Dion, I'd like you to address the question. There's a question further down from Michaela. How involved is the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology in the affairs of JPS? Oh, well, that one I can answer. Do they actively help out in projects, or do they just provide some funding, or do they just show up during presentations or ceremonies? That's an interesting question. All right, Michaela, the JPS is a mostly private entity, and I think this will address an earlier question that you asked about the ownership of JPS. So about 20 years ago, 21 years ago, the company, the government of Jamaica made a decision to sell majority shares in JPS, and they sold 80% shares. And the reason for the sale of those shares was basically why the government privatizes any entity, which is to get an injection of capital and expertise to manage the entity. A lot of investment is needed to keep the energy sector and an energy utility going. And so they needed to get that because the government could not handle that at all and still cannot. So it was sold and sold again. So right now we have 80% owned by two overseas companies, one a Korean-based company and one a Japanese-based company. And between them, there's an injection of approximately, on average, about $100 million per year in the capital projects, some of which our presenters today would have talked about. Now, the question that you had asked earlier is there any attempt to get back ownership of the company from these overseas owners? Right now, what I can tell you is that the government owns about just over 19% of the shares, and they have plans to put these on, put these out to the public so Jamaicans can actually get to share in the ownership of JPS. As far as I know right now, anything can change, but we will always need some heavy investment from other sources, but anything can happen down the road. With regards to the involvement of the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology, that's the ministry that is responsible for the policy framework within which JPS operates. They're not involved in funding JPS or in the day-to-day operations of the company at all. The government is responsible for the policy framework. They also have representatives on the board of directors. The Office of Utilities Regulation is responsible for the oversight, the regulatory oversight of JPS. So they set the electricity rates, the energy charges, they review our operating procedures and our standards. So they have that kind of oversight. With regards to the ministry, there is some involvement, but definitely not in the day-to-day operations. I hope that does answer your question.
Quintum, can I just add to your thoughts there? So as one of the team leads on a number of initiatives over the years, the collaboration and working with the ministry has also been very important. Though they set the policy, though they set the framework, we have really had to work closely together to ensure that some of these policies are delivered on the ground. So we're talking solar projects, we're talking renewable projects of different types. We're talking even with the conversion of some of our fleet to natural gas. This has always required that there be a very close working relationship with the ministry. So I want to throw that in terms of how private and how public work together to make things happen in Jamaica. So it's not just one entity alone. It's always critical in our space to have all your critical stakeholders moving in the same direction and having the conversations.
Thank you both very much.
Okay, Michaela, you're right.
Welcome, Michaela. Okay, we are going to wrap up now. I want to encourage
I have to
those
leave,
of you.
Winsome. Sorry, I have to leave. I actually have another meeting on me.
Thank you so much, Damian. Really appreciate your input, and we will forward to you any other question that you could answer.
All right, cool.
All right, thank you so much. We're wrapping up now. Just to tell the students that for those of you who are interested in electric mobility and you have questions, we want you to just make sure that you're following the eDrive page on Instagram at eDriveJA and on Facebook and coming soon on YouTube. I also want you to follow the JPS pages and tell us what you're thinking. There are questions, we will take your questions. And for those of you who have questions about the training, the facilitators of one-on-one will be the main source of information. So we will provide them with information that they can pass on to you for other opportunities that may come up. Okay. Thank you all very much. This really was a very rich conversation. I hope you benefited. And I'm going to hand over to Dion and Lincoln to say any final words.
Right, there's a question that is eDriveJA, just confirming the link there. And it's a definite yes, Dejan. Sir White, yes, right. All right, we want you to be following because it's happening fast and a lot of exciting things. And we heard Michaela, we need to make sure the message gets out and we want you to help us to get the message out. So my final words, really thank you for the opportunity really to be here. I've been in the energy sector for a while. I've seen the transitions. It takes, how should I frame it now? It takes strength, it takes determination. It's exciting to see things come from nothing into something in our energy space. And I believe that we are setting a good foundation for you, the next generation, to really build on it. Nothing is perfect. And we want to carry on the conversations and hear the questions and hear the exchanges because we want to leave in our time and season, a place that you can definitely build on in a much stronger way. So I'm leaving you the electric vehicles, maybe a few charging stations. You decide whether you're going to put it on the rooftops. I don't know. It's exciting and the sky is the limit. Thank you.
Thanks, Dion. Lincoln, any final words?
I think Dion said it. The sky is the limit. Don't limit yourself, guys. Basically, give it your best at school. Through whatever mechanisms and forms that you have here as well. you can continue to maintain the link and the dialogue with us. There's a bright future available to each and every one of you. Last week, I've hired 2 new engineers. In the past as well, I had 2 new engineers right out, in fact, right as them finished university. So JPS is in the business of giving opportunities to you smart young minds who are out there, who are willing to give it your all. Never give up, remain focused in school so that you can come out into the working world and make a change. And there are training opportunities and also exposure that even from time to time we offer site visits and tours here at my facility and some other JPS facilities to give you that kind of hands-on feel as to what it involves in when you come out here into the working world. So we'll look to basically set up some things like that for you guys going forward.
Looks like we're going to have one final question or comment from Roger England. Roger?
Not hearing him.
No, not hearing.
Can you put it in the chat if he's able to quickly? Roger, you're on mute.
I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, does JPS offer?
Yes, Roger, there is a facility through the JPS Foundation that provides support for tertiary students. If you have been a student that did electrical, industrial technology, electrical at CSEC, you would definitely be eligible to benefit from this. We have not advertised this year because we would be selecting from the cohort that would have benefited from our school fee grant, the grant for the exam. So if you were you were a beneficiary, you can contact us and we can just have a discussion around how we can assist. Or you didn't do electrical. Oh, all right. So right now we have not yet expanded the pool of scholarships and bursaries beyond electrical, but we'd be willing to look at opportunities, Roger. We're not closing any door at all. We will be willing to look at any opportunities. So watch our pages. Anything we're doing, we are going to be advertising it. So watch our pages on social media. Make sure you go and like us and start to communicate with us, engage with us. All right, and you get that information. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I know I was not one of the main presenters, but you all got me to join in. It was a pleasure being here, and it really was an honor for JPS to have been a part of the GSS training. And I do wish you all the very best. I hope you took note today and you might have been inspired to step into energy. This is one of the most vibrant fields for careers, some of which some jobs have not yet even been defined. And that's where you come in. You will be changing and creating and just rewriting stuff and creating a new future. So looking forward to hearing your names and seeing you on platforms. Thank you all very much and all the very best.
Bye-bye.